In the small town of Pine Valley, Amy Wells pulled her old blue car into the parking lot of Sunshine Faith Church. Amy was a local newspaper writer who wasn't afraid to uncover the truth. 3 days ago, she got a strange email that simply said, "Please help, we can't stop smiling." There was also a newspaper picture showing how the church was getting more and more members every week. The church was a big white building that looked too clean and new compared to the old, tired buildings around it. As Amy got out of her car, she saw people walking into the morning church service. Everyone wore perfectly clean clothes, but what really caught her eye were their faces. They all had the exact same smile. These weren't happy smiles, though. They looked fake, like plastic masks. At the door, Pastor Mike Bright welcomed her. He had neat golden hair and a face so smooth it didn't look real. His smile was bigger than everyone else's. "Welcome to our happy family," he said, staring at her for too long. "We knew you would come." Amy felt a chill. She hadn't told anyone she was visiting. Inside, the church smelled like new paint and something sweet that made her feel dizzy. Mrs. Jenny Rose, the choir leader, led the singing with that same fixed smile. In the back row, Amy saw a teenage girl named Lucy Gray, who looked scared even though she was smiling. Next to Lucy sat the church secretary, Miss Betty White, whose hands kept shaking while she held her prayer book. Amy watched Mr. Tom Strong and Mr. Jack Steele, the church helpers, standing guard at the doors. They were big men whose smiles looked more scary than friendly. In the front row sat Dr. Peter Kind, the town's only doctor, who kept wiping sweat from his forehead despite the cool air. During the service, Amy noticed how everyone moved their heads at the same time when Pastor Mike talked. He kept saying things like, "Happy people are good people," and "Sadness is bad for your soul." Then something strange happened. Instead of bread and wine, everyone lined up to take a small blue pill from Sister Mary Joy, who wore a white nurse's uniform under her church robe. After the service, Amy pretended to drop her pen so she could stay behind. That's when she heard crying coming from behind the big cross at the front. She found a secret door that led to a dark basement. Before she could look inside, Pastor Mike grabbed her shoulder. His cold hand felt like ice through her jacket. "Miss Wells," he said in a sweet voice that didn't match his tight grip, "let's talk in my office. There's so much you should know about our special church." Amy looked around and saw she was alone with Pastor Mike, Mr. Strong, and Mr. Steele. Their smiles now looked like angry grins. The crying from the basement got louder. She had to choose, follow Pastor Mike or run for the basement door. But the exit was blocked, and through the colored windows, she saw more church members surrounding the building, all wearing those terrible smiles. She thought about the email asking for help. Then she noticed something worse: tiny needle marks on Mr. Strong's and Mr. Steele's necks, and how their hands shook even while they smiled. Amy realized this church was hiding something much darker than fake happiness, and she worried she might be trapped. Amy's heart was racing as Pastor Mike led her to his office. His hand never left her shoulder, and his fingernails dug into her skin through her jacket. The office was painted bright yellow, with smiley face pictures covering every wall. A strong smell of medicine mixed with flowers made her feel dizzy. "Please, have some tea," Pastor Mike said, pointing to a cup that was already waiting on his desk. Amy noticed the tea had a strange blue color. She pretended to sip it but didn't swallow. Behind Pastor Mike's desk, she spotted a computer screen showing security camera feeds. There were cameras everywhere in the church, even in the confession boxes. "Our church has grown so much," Pastor Mike said proudly. 5 years ago, we had just 10 members. Now we have 300. Even the mayor, Mr. Bill Happy, joined us last month. He showed Amy pictures of before and after shots of church members. In the before pictures, people looked normal, some happy, some sad. But in the after pictures, they all had that same creepy smile. While Pastor Mike was talking, Amy saw something that made her blood freeze. In one security camera, she watched Lucy Gray, the scared teenage girl, trying to sneak out through the back door. Mr. Strong grabbed her arm and jabbed something in her neck. Lucy's frightened face slowly changed into that familiar fixed smile as Sister Mary Joy wheeled her away in a wheelchair. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the basement. Pastor Mike's smile twitched for the first time. "Excuse me," he said, pressing a button under his desk. Mr. Steele came in immediately. "Watch our guest," Pastor Mike ordered, hurrying out. Left alone with Mr. Steele, Amy noticed his smile was fading slightly. His hands were shaking more now, and sweat ran down his face. "Help," he whispered, his smile fighting to stay in place. "The pills, when they wear off." But before he could finish, he collapsed, his body shaking. Amy rushed to help him, but then she heard screaming from the basement. It was Lucy's voice. "No more shots. Please." Making a quick decision, Amy grabbed Mr. Steele's security card from his pocket and ran out of the office. In the hallway, she bumped into Dr. Kind, who dropped his medical bag. Blue pills and syringes scattered across the floor. "You shouldn't have seen that," he said, but his voice sounded sad. "They have my daughter. I have to make the formula. I have to keep smiling." His face was fighting between fear and that forced smile. Amy helped him pick up the pills, secretly pocketing a few as evidence. That's when she saw a familiar name on one of the prescription bottles. It belonged to her best friend Sarah Cooper, who had disappeared 6 months ago after writing a story about missing people in Pine Valley. More screams came from the basement. Dr. Kind grabbed Amy's arm. "There's something worse down there," he whispered. "The pills are just the beginning. Those who resist, they take them to the special prayer room. Nobody who goes there comes back the same. They call it permanent smile surgery." Before Amy could respond, the church bells started ringing, but it wasn't a normal pattern. All the church members started walking towards the main hall like robots. Dr. Kind's eyes went wide with fear. "The gathering bell," he said. "They're calling everyone for a special service. They only do this when someone needs to be corrected." Through the window, Amy saw more church members arriving, including police officers and town officials, all wearing those same smiles. She realized this was bigger than just a church. It was controlling the whole town. In her pocket, her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Behind the organ. Secret tunnel. Hurry. Sarah." Amy's hands shook. Her missing friend was alive. But was this a trap? And what about Lucy and the others in the basement? The bells kept ringing as heavy footsteps approached from both directions of the hallway. Amy had seconds to decide. Try to find Sarah behind the organ, risk going to the basement to help Lucy, or accept Pastor Mike's invitation to join the special service. But she knew one wrong choice could leave her with a permanent smile, too. Amy's racing mind made a split decision. Sarah would have to wait. She couldn't leave Lucy and the others to suffer in the basement. Using Mr. Steele's security card, she quietly slipped through a side door while Dr. Kind distracted the approaching footsteps by pretending to faint. The basement stairs creaked under her feet. The walls were no longer bright and clean like upstairs, but dark and damp. Strange machines hummed behind closed doors, and the sound of quiet crying echoed through the hallway. Through small windows in each door, Amy saw rows of beds with people strapped down, all in different stages of treatment. Some were crying, some laughing uncontrollably, and others just stared at the ceiling with those terrible smiles. In the last room, Amy found Lucy strapped to a chair. Sister Mary Joy was preparing a large needle filled with bright blue liquid. "This special dose will make you smile forever, dear," she said sweetly. Amy grabbed a metal tray from nearby and knocked the needle from Sister Mary Joy's hand. The nurse's smile never wavered as she pressed an alarm button on the wall. "You don't understand," Sister Mary Joy said calmly while Amy worked to unbuckle Lucy's straps. "We're making everyone happy. No more sadness, no more worry, no more pain. Isn't that beautiful?" Her smile stretched wider as she pulled out another syringe from her pocket. Lucy finally broke free, but she was wobbly from the drugs. "The mayor's daughter," she slurred, pointing to a door marked "Special Cases." "She's in there. She found out what was in the pills." Before she could finish, heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs. Amy helped Lucy into a storage closet just as Pastor Mike appeared with Mr. Strong and 3 smiling police officers. "Search every room," Pastor Mike's voice boomed. "Today's special service cannot be delayed. The whole town is waiting to welcome our new members." Hidden in the closet, Amy and Lucy discovered shelves full of files. While listening to the search outside, Amy quickly photographed documents with her phone. What she found was horrifying. The blue pills were just Phase 1, called Happiness Preparation. Phase 2 was Smile Surgery, where they permanently altered people's facial muscles and did something to their brains. The final phase was called Joy's Embrace, but those files were locked in Pastor Mike's office. Lucy pointed to a blueprint that showed something unexpected. The basement connected to an old tunnel system running under the whole town. One tunnel led to the mayor's house, another to the police station, and a third to the local water treatment plant. Suddenly, Lucy grabbed Amy's arm. "The water supply," she whispered. "That's how they're spreading the early formula to everyone in town. My dad works at the plant. He started acting strange last month, always smiling." Her voice trailed off as footsteps approached their hiding place. The closet door handle started to turn. Amy and Lucy held their breath, but instead of Pastor Mike, they saw Dr. Kind. "Quick," he whispered, his smile now completely gone, replaced by determination. "I created a temporary antidote, but it only works for an hour." He handed them each a red pill. "Your friend Sarah is waiting in the tunnels. She's been gathering evidence for months, but they caught her taking pictures of the water plant. They've been keeping her in the special prayer room, trying to break her." More footsteps echoed nearby. Dr. Kind quickly gave them directions to the tunnel entrance, but as Amy and Lucy prepared to leave, he stayed behind. "I have to go back," he said sadly. "They have my daughter in the special cases room. Find a way to expose them. Save the others." He swallowed a blue pill and the familiar smile spread across his face just as Pastor Mike rounded the corner. Amy and Lucy quietly slipped away, hearing Pastor Mike ask Dr. Kind if he'd seen anything suspicious. They reached the tunnel entrance, but there was another choice to make. Follow the tunnel to Sarah and escape with the evidence they had, or try to rescue the others in the special cases room, including Dr. Kind's daughter and the mayor's daughter. The sound of the gathering bell was getting louder, and they could hear hundreds of footsteps above them, all moving in perfect unison. Lucy and Amy swallowed Dr. Kind's red pills and decided to split up. Lucy would find Sarah in the tunnels, while Amy went to the special cases room. They'd meet at the water treatment plant in 1 hour, before the antidote wore off. The special cases room was worse than Amy imagined. She found 10 people strapped to strange chairs with metal devices attached to their faces, forcing their mouths into permanent smiles. Among them was Katie Kind, the doctor's teenage daughter, and Rebecca Happy, the mayor's daughter who had discovered the water plant secret. Using Mr. Steele's key card, Amy freed Rebecca, who could barely walk but managed to whisper something terrifying. "The real Pastor Mike died 2 years ago. This one is an imposter. He came with those blue pills and strange machines. The first thing he did was convert the police chief and mayor. They're planning something big at today's special service, mass conversion, the whole town. Meanwhile, Lucy navigated the dark tunnels using her phone's flashlight. She found Sarah deeper in, hiding in an old maintenance room surrounded by maps and notes. Sarah looked tired but smiled naturally when she saw Lucy. "I've found their supplier," Sarah said, showing Lucy pictures of nighttime deliveries behind the church. "Some big company called Everjoy Pharmaceuticals sends unmarked trucks every week. But here's the crazy part. I traced their address. It's not a real place. It's an empty field outside town." Back in the basement, Amy and Rebecca were freeing the others when they heard Sister Mary Joy's voice echo through the speakers. "Attention, blessed ones. Our special service begins in 30 minutes. Today, we celebrate as our entire community joins in perfect harmony. The time of sadness ends forever." Just then, Amy's phone buzzed with messages from Lucy. "Found Sarah. It's worse than we thought. Police chief signing forms to make blue pills mandatory for all residents. Mayor approved water supply increase tonight. Town meeting announced for 6 p.m. Everyone must attend." Amy looked at her watch. Their antidote would wear off in 40 minutes. They had to stop both the water supply plan and the special service. But how? Rebecca pointed to a familiar name on a nearby computer screen. Chief Engineer Tom Wells, Amy's father, was scheduled for priority conversion in 10 minutes. Suddenly, they heard Pastor Mike's voice getting closer, talking to someone on the phone. "Yes, sir. Phase 3 begins tonight. Pine Valley is just the test run. Once we prove it works here, we'll expand to other towns. Soon, everyone will know the joy of our permanent smile." The basement lights flickered, and a new sound filled the air. Dozens of footsteps coming down the stairs. The special service was starting early. Amy's phone buzzed one last time. "Lucy here. Found something in Sarah's research. Pastor Mike has a twin brother. He's a failed scientist who worked for Everjoy. Company shut down his happiness experiments for being too extreme. Sarah found old photos. He looked exactly like the real Pastor Mike." Amy gathered the freed prisoners and found a heavy metal door marked Emergency Exit. It led to the tunnels, but as they opened it, alarms blared throughout the building. A security camera turned towards them, and Pastor Mike's voice came through the speakers, now sounding completely different, cold and clinical. "Fascinating subjects, such resistance to happiness. Don't worry, after tonight's service, you'll never want to frown again. No one will." They could hear the crowd getting closer, hundreds of footsteps moving in perfect sync. The antidote had 30 minutes left. Amy's father was about to be converted. The water supply would be contaminated at 6 p.m. And somewhere in the tunnels, Lucy and Sarah were trying to reach the water plant. The next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but the future of the entire town. And based on what Pastor Mike said, maybe even the whole country. Racing against time, Amy made a desperate plan. She sent the freed prisoners with Rebecca through the tunnel to the water plant to meet Lucy and Sarah. Meanwhile, she ran back upstairs to save her father, knowing he'd have the codes to shut down the water system. In the main church hall, Amy froze at a terrifying sight. Hundreds of townspeople sat in perfect rows, their smiles wider than ever. On a giant screen, a countdown timer showed 25 minutes until 6 p.m. Workers were setting up strange-looking machines that looked like dentist chairs with helmet attachments. She spotted her father near the front, already strapped in a chair. Dr. Kind was preparing an extra-large syringe of blue liquid, his hands shaking as Pastor Mike watched closely. "This special batch ensures permanent compliance," Pastor Mike explained to the smiling crowd. "No more temporary pills. Tonight, We all become one eternally happy family. Suddenly, Amy's phone vibrated. It was Sarah. Found proof. Everjoy Company, owned by government contractor. They're testing mind-controlled drugs here before selling to military. Real Pastor Mike discovered truth. They replaced him with scientist twin. Check basement files marked Phase 3. Just then, the church lights dimmed. Pastor Mike's voice boomed. Brothers and sisters, you've done well with your daily pills, but some still resist our joy. Tonight, we ensure perfect happiness for all. The crowd cheered in unison, a horrible synchronized laugh. Amy noticed something odd. The security cameras were turning off one by one. Then she saw Dr. Kind secretly unplugging them. He caught her eye and nodded toward a side door. But before she could move, Sister Mary Joy grabbed her arm. "Time for your blessing, dear," she said, pulling out a syringe. That's when the first explosion rocked the building. The water plant's emergency alarm blared across town. Lucy and the others had reached the control room. A second message from Sarah popped up. "Release proof to media. FBI on way. Keep everyone inside church for 15 minutes. Pure chaos erupted. Some people's smiles began to fade. The shock had disrupted their conditioning. Pastor Mike rushed to a hidden panel, revealing a wall of switches. "Release the emergency happiness gas," he screamed, his calm facade cracking. But Dr. Kind was faster. He injected Pastor Mike with a clear liquid, a concentrated dose of the antidote. The fake pastor's smile twisted into a look of horror as years of suppressed emotions flooded back. Amy ran to her father, finding him groggy but alive. "Water, codes," he mumbled, fighting the drugs. 74913, emergency, shut down. Sarah's final message flashed. "SWAT team at water plant. System shutting down. Get out now." But Pastor Mike, though struggling, pressed a red button. Steel shutters slammed down over the windows and doors. "If I can't have this town," he snarled, his face contorting between expressions, "no one will. The gas will make everyone smile. Forever." Green vapor began seeping through the vents. People started laughing uncontrollably. Amy had only minutes left on her antidote. She saw Dr. Kind running to the basement. What did he know that she didn't? The sound of helicopters filled the air. The gas was getting thicker. Pastor Mike's laughter echoed through the church. And somewhere in the building, a timer was ticking down to something even worse than forced smiles. As green gas filled the church, Dr. Kind's voice crackled through the old intercom system from the basement. "Amy!" The ventilation controls. Red lever behind the altar. His voice was breaking up, fighting between laughter and panic. Struggling through the crowd of laughing people, Amy reached the altar. Her father, still groggy but fighting the effects, helped her push it aside. They found not just a lever, but a hidden computer screen showing a horrifying countdown. Phase 3, neural network activation, 10 minutes remaining. Sarah's research files flashed through Amy's mind. This wasn't just about making people smile. The chips in the smile surgery machines were building a connected network of controlled minds. Pine Valley was just the beginning. Suddenly, Lucy's voice came through Amy's phone. "The water plant is secure." "But Amy, we found rooms full of bodies in the tunnels. The real church members who resisted. They've been here for years. The whole church is just actors from Everjoy. The real Pastor Mike's body is here too." The fake Pastor Mike, now laughing and crying at the same time from the antidote, pulled out a gun. "You don't understand. Happiness is control. Once the network activates, everyone who's taken even one pill or drop of water will be connected. No more free will, no more sadness, no more disobedience." But he didn't notice Dr. Kind sneaking up behind him with another syringe. "This is for my daughter," he said, injecting the fake pastor with something that made him collapse instantly. Amy pulled the ventilation lever, and giant fans roared to life, sucking out the green gas. Her father, now more alert, ran to the computer system. "I can't stop the network activation from here," he said, typing frantically. "It's connected to something in the basement, in the special prayer room." The timer showed 7 minutes. Outside, they heard sirens and helicopters. The FBI was arriving, but they'd never make it in time. Amy's antidote had only 5 minutes left. Racing to the basement with her father, they found Dr. Kind at a massive machine covered in blinking lights. "It's the neural transmitter," he explained quickly, "but destroying it might kill everyone connected to the network. Half the town has those chips now." Suddenly, Sister Mary Joy appeared, holding Sarah at gunpoint. But something was different. She was crying despite her smile. "I'm the real Pastor Mike's wife," she revealed. "They kept me here, forced me to help. But I've been adding antidote to the recent batches of pills. That's why people are breaking free." The timer hit 4 minutes. Sarah, despite the gun, spoke up. "The tunnels. They connect to an old military bunker. The main control room has to be there." She pointed to a hidden door behind the transmitter. Amy's father studied the machine's display. "These coordinates? That's not a bunker. It's the old nuclear shelter under the town hall. They've been using its power grid." The building shook as something exploded above. Parts of the ceiling began falling. They heard people screaming upstairs, but normal screams, not endless laughter. The antidote was working. 3 minutes left. Amy felt her own antidote fading, the urge to smile creeping back. They had 3 choices: try to disable the transmitter, risking everyone with chips; race through the tunnels to the control room, evacuate everyone before something worse happened. Sister Mary Joy suddenly turned her gun toward the transmitter. "I know how to end this," she said, "but we need to get everyone out first. The real Pastor Mike left a failsafe." Her hand shook as she reached for a panel marked "Emergency Purge." The timer hit 2 minutes, and the machine started humming louder. Through the basement windows, they saw black vans and SWAT teams surrounding the church. But they also saw something else: townspeople walking toward the church like zombies, their smiles wider than ever. The network was already starting. As the timer ticked down, Sister Mary Joy revealed the terrible truth. The failsafe will fry all the neural chips, but it'll trigger a massive electrical surge. This whole place will explode. She typed in a code. "Michael's birthday," she whispered, tears streaming down her fixed smile. Upstairs, they heard the FBI breaking in. Amy's father grabbed the church's old microphone. "Everyone out. Now, this is not a drill," his voice shaking off the last effects of the drugs. The sound of hundreds of feet running filled the building. But the crowd of smiling people outside kept growing, all walking towards the church like puppets. Sarah checked her phone's map. "They're coming from everywhere. The school, the mall, offices. The network is pulling them in." 90 seconds left. Dr. Kind rushed to help evacuate the special cases room, but stopped suddenly. "The antidote storage. We need it to save the others." He ran to a hidden freezer, filling a medical bag with red vials. That's when the ceiling above him cracked. Amy pulled him away just as it caved in. 60 seconds. Lucy's voice crackled through their phones. "Guys! The water plant just got new orders from the transmitter. They're trying to pump something worse into the system. We can't override it." In the background, they heard pounding. The smiling townspeople were trying to break in. Sister Mary Joy pressed the fail-safe button, but nothing happened. The fake Pastor Mike had changed the codes. His unconscious body was still upstairs. They needed his fingerprint to activate it. 45 seconds. Amy and Sarah ran upstairs while the others kept evacuating people. They found the fake pastor's body, but he was gone. A trail of blood led to his office. Inside, he was deleting files from his computer, laughing madly. "Too late," he screamed. "The network is linking to other towns. Can't you feel it? The happiness is spreading." 30 seconds. Downstairs, Amy's father discovered something horrifying on the transmitter's screen. The neural network wasn't just connecting minds, it was uploading them to a central server. They weren't just controlling people, they were digitizing their consciousness. 15 seconds. Sister Mary Joy found another way. An old church bell rope. "The bell!" she yelled. "It's not just a bell, it's a copper coil antenna. If we ring it while overloading the transmitter..." Dr. Kind understood immediately, running to help her. 10 seconds. The fake pastor jumped up to stop them, but Sarah was ready. She'd found his tranquilizer gun and shot him. They dragged his hand to the scanner. 5 seconds. The bell began to toll. The transmitter screamed with power. Suddenly, every screen in the basement flashed red. Warning. Network corruption. Consciousness upload. Failing. System overload. Everything happened at once. A blinding flash, a deafening boom, and the feeling of 1,000 volts coursing through the air. Every smiling person within a mile dropped to their knees. The neural chips were frying, but as the dust settled, they realized the chaos wasn't over. The fake pastor's computer was still uploading something. On its screen, a new message appeared. Backup network activated, remote servers online, Phase 4 commencing. Through the broken windows, they saw more headlights approaching from the highway. Trucks with the Everjoy logo, lots of them. And in the basement, the transmitter screen flickered back to life with a final message. "Thank you for beta testing Happiness Protocol 1.0. Full deployment begins now." This wasn't just about Pine Valley anymore. It was about to go national. Amy's father typed frantically on the transmitter's keyboard, his hands shaking with panic. "They can't deploy nationally without the original core code," he explained. "It's still uploading from here. We have minutes to corrupt it." Working for the water plant had taught him enough about computer systems to be dangerous. Meanwhile, Sarah found a horrifying email on the fake pastor's computer. Everjoy trucks were heading to water treatment plants in 5 major cities. The Pine Valley test run had worked well enough for them to go bigger, but there was something else. A hidden file labeled truepurpose.doc. Lucy burst in through the tunnel entrance, soaking wet and terrified. The water plant, everyone's dead. The smiling people, they just walked in and... She couldn't finish. She handed Amy a wet piece of paper, shipping schedules. The contaminated water was already on its way to other towns. Dr. Kind and Sister Mary Joy worked desperately to wake up the collapsed townspeople. The fried neural chips had left them alive but unconscious. Each person needed a specific dose of antidote based on how long they'd been controlled. Too much or too little could kill them. Suddenly, all their phones buzzed at once. A message from an unknown number. Project Joy was never about happiness. Check the basement freezer, -M. It was signed with a cross, the real Pastor Mike's signature. Amy and Sarah ran to the freezer while her father kept working on the code. Behind frozen antidote vials, they found a hidden compartment. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten journal. The real Pastor Mike had discovered everything before he died. The journal's last entry chilled them. Everjoy isn't a pharmaceutical company. It's a front for a secret government program. Project Joy isn't about controlling people. It's about harvesting consciousness. The smiles are just a side effect. They're building a human cloud server, storing minds. But why? A loud explosion shook the building. The Everjoy trucks had arrived, and they weren't just carrying supplies. Men in tactical gear poured out, wearing masks and carrying strange weapons that shot darts. Dr. Kine grabbed the journal, his face pale. "I know this program. I worked on the early versions. They want to digitize human consciousness to create a massive neural network. Free labor, perfect soldiers, controlled voters. They could make people do anything," Amy's father shouted from the transmitter room. "The code is copying faster. We need access to their main server to corrupt it." He pointed to a blinking address on the screen. Lucy recognized it, an abandoned military base just outside town. Sister Mary Joy spoke up, her smile finally fading completely. "There's a way." The real Pastor Mike built an old fallout shelter under the church. It connects to the military base through maintenance tunnels, but she hesitated. The tunnel floods every few hours when they test the water plant systems. Sarah checked her phone's clock. Next flood is in 30 minutes. The national deployment starts in 45 seconds. They had to choose, try to fight through the Everjoy teams above, or risk drowning in the tunnels below. Either way, they had to reach that server room. If the consciousness harvesting code went national, humanity itself would be at risk. Amy looked at her team. Her recovering father, the scared but brave Lucy, Sarah with her evidence, Dr. Kind with his medical knowledge, and Sister Mary Joy who'd lost her husband to this madness. Behind them, the townspeople were slowly waking up, confused and afraid. Then another message buzzed on their phones. "Don't trust the flood schedule. They're flooding the tunnels now, but I can give you a head start." The lights went out. Emergency sirens blared, and they heard water rushing somewhere deep below. In the darkness, Amy heard Sister Mary Joy fumbling with something. It was an old church blueprint. By phone light, she showed them another way. The church's old heating tunnels. They run higher than the flood tunnels, might be tight, but gunfire erupted upstairs. Through the chaos, they heard a familiar voice, Mr. Strong, his laughter now maniacal, leading the Everjoy team. He'd become something worse than just a smiling puppet. They split into teams. Amy's father and Dr. Kind stayed behind to help the awakening townspeople, armed with antidote vials. Sarah and Sister Mary Joy took the evidence to the FBI teams outside. Lucy and Amy headed for the heating tunnels, carrying Pastor Mike's USB drive and journal. They had to reach that military base. Amy's heart stopped. Her mother hadn't abandoned them? She was taken? The tunnel suddenly grew cold. Through gaps in the old pipes, they saw something terrifying. Rows of metal pods in a hidden room, each containing a sleeping person, all wearing peaceful smiles. A sign read, "Consciousness Storage Unit 7. Lucy checked the journal's last pages. "Oh God," she whispered. "They're not just digitizing consciousness. They're storing the original bodies to use as spare parts for their perfect society. These people are being kept alive to harvest them." Amy's phone buzzed. A message from her father. Transmitter showing hundreds of pods activating across town. "Main server is starting consciousness transfer. We have 15 minutes." They finally reached the military base through a vent, dropping into a dark hallway. But they weren't alone. Dozens of smiling people stood frozen, like mannequins. Through a window, they saw a massive room filled with computers and more pods, some marked "Ready for National Deployment." Then they heard it, a woman humming. Amy knew that tune. Around the corner, in a glass office, sat her mother at a computer. She turned, smiling that terrible smile, but her eyes were crying. "Welcome home, sweetie," she said, in a robotically cheerful voice. "Would you like to join our perfect world? Your consciousness will be so much happier in the cloud." Behind her mother's head, Amy saw a blinking red light, a neural chip control node. One shot with the antidote could free her, but her mother's finger was on a button marked "Emergency Upload." They had the USB drive that could corrupt the system. They had proof of the whole conspiracy. But they only had one shot of antidote left, and the building was filling with Everjoy soldiers. Then every screen in the facility lit up red. National upload commencing in 10 minutes. All units prepare for consciousness transfer. The facility's speakers crackled. Attention all units. Begin national consciousness harvest. The voice was Mr. Strong's, but different. Cold, mechanical, like a computer trying to sound human. Amy had seconds to decide. She looked at her mother, then at the USB port on the main computer. The antidote syringe felt heavy in her pocket. Lucy was checking the journal frantically, looking for any clue about how to shut down the system. Then they saw something through the glass windows. Sarah, Dr. Kind, and Sister Mary Joy had found another way in. They were sneaking through a service entrance carrying something large. It was the church's old bell, the copper coil antenna that had disrupted the system before. But Amy's mother saw them too. Her smile widened as she reached for an alarm button. More friends to join our happiness cloud? How wonderful! Amy did something desperate. She ran forward, hugging her mother tightly. The sudden human contact made her mother freeze, fighting against her programming. For just a moment, her real eyes showed through. "Amy, baby, run," she whispered through her fixed smile. Lucy used this distraction to plug in the USB drive. Immediately, alarms blared. Unauthorized code detected, initiating security lockdown. The smiling mannequin people came alive, moving towards them. But they were slow, struggling against their own programming. Dr. Kind's antidote in the church bell had weakened the whole network. Sarah and Sister Mary Joy started setting up the bell, while Dr. Kind worked on connecting it to the facility's power supply. "We can create feedback loop," he shouted. "Fry their whole system." Suddenly, the wall exploded. Mr. Strong walked in with a team of Everjoy soldiers, all wearing strange helmets. "The first generation needed chips," he said in that mechanical voice. "These men are version 2.0, direct neural link, no hardware needed." Amy's mother stood up, fighting visibly now. "The happiness, it's not real." She struggled to speak. "The cloud, it's not storage. It's a hive mind. They want one consciousness, controlling millions of bodies." The USB drive finished uploading. Every screen flashed. System corrupted, neural network destabilizing, consciousness transfer failing. Amy's mother grabbed her daughter's hand, tears streaming down her frozen smile. "The antidote, not on me. The main server. That's what needs it." Lucy understood first. The server is like a brain. If we inject the antidote directly into the cooling system. They had one shot of antidote left. The server room was down the hall, but Mr. Strong and his men were blocking the way, and the pods were about to complete their upload sequence. Then Amy's father's voice came through the speakers. "Amy, the water plant, the town's water supply. It still has traces of their formula. If we flood the facility now, it would short out everything," Dr. Kind finished. "But the water would mix with the antidote, spread it through the whole system." They had moments to decide: risk the last antidote on the server, try to save Amy's mother, or trigger the flood and hope it worked. Mr. Strong raised his weapon. The pods glowed brighter, and somewhere in the building, they heard the sound of rushing water. The facility's emergency lights turned red as water began seeping under the doors. Amy looked at the final antidote syringe, then at her mother, and made her choice. "Lucy, get ready to run." Without warning, Amy threw the syringe, not at her mother or the server, but at the sprinkler system above Mr. Strong's head. The glass broke, and the antidote mixed with the sprinkler water, raining down over everything. "Now!" Amy's father yelled through the speakers. The church bell, connected to the facility's power, began to ring. The sound was different this time, deeper, making the metal walls vibrate. Mr. Strong's soldiers started shaking, their helmets sparking. The diluted antidote was weakening them. But Mr. Strong himself just smiled wider, advancing toward the server room. Foolish girl, I'm not connected to their network. I am the network. That's when Amy's mother did something incredible. Fighting through her programming, she tackled Mr. Strong. Run! To the server, she managed through her smile. I've been fighting him for 3 years. I can hold him. Lucy and Amy sprinted to the server room while Sarah and Sister Mary Joy kept the door blocked. Dr. Kind shouted instructions through their phones. The main hard drive, top panel. You have to physically destroy it. The server room was massive, walls lined with blinking computers. Water was ankle deep now. Amy's father's voice crackled. Water main pressure rising. You have 2 minutes. They found the main server unit, but it needed a password. Lucy tried everything. Dates, names, church records. Nothing worked. Then Amy remembered something from her mother's office. A photo on her desk. She typed FAMILY 1995. The panel clicked open. Inside was something that looked like a glowing human brain made of crystal circuits. The consciousness core, Lucy gasped. This is where they store everyone's minds. Suddenly, monitors around them lit up with faces, hundreds of stored consciousnesses, all wearing that same smile, all speaking together. Why resist happiness? Join us. Become perfect. Become one. Mr. Strong burst in, dragging Amy's mother. You don't understand. Humanity is chaos. We're offering peace, order, eternal joy. His face was twitching, fighting the antidote rain. The water was rising fast. The bell's vibrations were making the walls crack. They were running out of time. Then Amy noticed something. A small pulsing light deep in the consciousness core, the same color as her mother's tears. Not everything had been converted. Some real human consciousness remained. Lucy found a heavy wrench. One hit would destroy it all. But would that kill everyone connected to it? All those stored minds? Amy's mother? The choice was made for them. Amy's mother broke free from Mr. Strong, grabbed the wrench, and looked at her daughter. For one moment, her real smile shone through. I love you, sweetheart. Save them all. She swung the wrench just as the floodwaters burst through the walls. The consciousness core shattered. 1 month later, Amy sat in the rebuilt Pine Valley Gazette office, finishing her article about what people now called the Smiling Church incident. The national media had been crawling all over the story for weeks. The headlines told different pieces of the truth. Everjoy Pharmaceuticals exposed, government mind control program revealed, hundreds rescued from underground storage facilities, military base, hidden network, the truth behind the smiles, small town uncovers national conspiracy. Amy looked at the new photos on her desk. Lucy and Sarah receiving awards for investigative journalism, Dr. Kind reunited with his daughter, Sister Mary Joy, turning the church into a recovery center for former victims, and her father overseeing the cleanup of the water system. But her favorite photo was the oldest one. Her mother's real smile from before Everjoy, before the blue pills, before everything went wrong. The doctors were hopeful. Like many others, her mother was recovering in the special hospital they'd set up. The forced smiles were gone, but healing the minds would take time. Mr. Strong and several Everjoy executives were in custody, their real identities finally revealed. They were scientists who had twisted a mental health research project into something monstrous. The fake Pastor Mike was found in the flood, his real face showing through the surgical alterations. But something still bothered Amy. That last message signed -M never appeared again. Some survivors swore they'd seen the real Pastor Mike during their rescue, guiding them to safety, though no body was ever found. Lucy burst into the office waving a USB drive. "Amy, look what we found in the old tunnel system." It was security footage showing unmarked trucks heading west, carrying what looked like computer servers. Sarah, now the paper's lead investigative reporter, pulled up satellite images. Everjoy had facilities in other towns, smaller ones. Some got cleaned out before the FBI arrived. Amy's phone buzzed. An unknown number. The smiles may be gone, but stay vigilant. Some networks never truly die. As if on cue, the office TV showed breaking news. Strange behavior reported in western towns. Residents complaining of unexplained happiness and constant smiling. Amy looked at her friends. Lucy was already grabbing her car keys. Sarah was packing her camera. Through the window, she saw Dr. Kind pulling up in his car, medical bag ready. Their work wasn't over. The truth about Project Joy wasn't fully exposed. Somewhere, someone was still trying to build that human cloud server, but this time, they were ready. Amy grabbed her notebook and the old church blueprint that Sister Mary Joy had given her. On the back, written in faded ink, were coordinates to other churches, other towns. "The fight for real happiness," Amy wrote in her final paragraph, "isn't about perfect smiles or peaceful minds. It's about choice. It's about feeling everything, joy and pain, laughter and tears. Most importantly, it's about being human." She looked at her mother's photo once more, then stood up. There were more stories to uncover, more people to save, and somewhere out there, more truths about Project Joy waiting to be found. And maybe, just maybe, a mysterious pastor still watching over it all.